Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. And today, as we continue this Unsung Heroes series, which I love, man, like there are so many people out there who have these incredible good news stories and are definitely unsung heroes. What's really interesting to me is that almost every time we have one of these conversations, the unsung hero who we're highlighting points to other people in their life who are also unsung heroes, who have been unsung heroes to them, who have been a part of their life and their story. This is a very special man. This is Dave Wellings, and thanks to Roberta Canning, who it was her connection that got Dave to us. This is a story that's going to leave you with your jaw dropped. This is incredible. It's hard to believe that this single man has adopted 7 young men from Uganda, Africa. Just an incredible story. But if you would just be aware of the other people in Dave's life that have been a part of his journey, because we all have people like that, and it's a great time to give them thanks and honor them and be aware of other people's work in our life that make us who we are today. Friends, get ready, fasten your seatbelts. This is a good one. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast, and we are really excited about this summer series on unsung heroes. And as you probably recognize, most people don't consider themselves an unsung hero. That's why we feel it's part of our job to share the good news of these incredible stories, to say these are unsung heroes. This very much, I can't wait for you to hear Dave's story. This is Dave Wellings, and Dave, really appreciate, as I said in the introduction, man, like your story is one of the most profound and amazing that I have ever heard. And maybe that's a good place for us to start. Like, how in the world did you go from, a single guy to having these 7 beautiful boys as part of your life, as part of your family?
Yeah.
Incredible.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
I bet. Yeah.
Well, just a little bit about me. I was raised by I was given birth from a teenage mother and father who was just early 20s. And I was the second child, and we grew up in a very poor area, what you would call a slum in Parry Sound, the harbor. And we had a really rough and terrible life. And one of the things I can tell you for sure is that through all that roughness, as a little kid, I was inspired for one thing, and that was finding who Jesus was about, who God was about. And when my father and mother split, and even when I was younger, my father insisted, because he was an atheist, that, everything we do, we have to do on our own. No one could assist us and no one could help us. If it was meant to be, then we would make it happen. So I used to walk several kilometers to find a church on a Sunday morning that I could go and discover what was going on in there, because people told me it was the house of God.
Wow.
Right?
How old would you be at this point?
About 7.
Incredible.
7 years old.
So it's almost like God had given you a spiritual curiosity and interest from a very early age.
Very early age.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Life becomes full circle, because the church that I'm back at in Parry Sound, the Bayside Family Church, used to be the Pentecostal church when I was a child. And that was the church where the pastor at that time was the first person to run a bus program. And he went out into our area and he took his bus and he just said hello to the kids and says, if anybody wants to go to Sunday school, the bus will be here at this time on Sunday mornings. Just come get on the bus. And so I said to the man, okay, but I can't tell my dad. I said, but I'll come. And I went to that church. And I went to Sunday school there for a while, and then I got a little freaked out by, the tongues part. As a little child, didn't understand that, and it was like, okay. So I just went on a quest, and I went to the Presbyterian Church, the United Church. Didn't go to the Catholic Church because that was just not. I was on the other side.
Yeah.
And eventually, I settled back at the Pentecostal Church for a little bit, and then, as the situation became worse in the family and my parents split, after a lot of troubled times, I felt like I didn't know, that, God, how can you let this happen? Right? Why are you making this happen to me? And after my parents split, I started to experience our family like had very few places of safe shelter. And there was one particular aunt, it was my father's aunt, and my Aunt Mariel, and she just was this huge safe place for us on Orillia on Lake Couchiching. And she chose us, my mom and my brothers and I, to offer a safe place to. And we used to go there and we could just be kids. Other than that, we couldn't be kids anywhere.
Yeah.
And then God took her as the first death. So I was 14 years old 12 years old when she died.
Wow.
And I was like a never experienced death.
Yeah.
And God took her from me.
Yeah.
And,
and just thinking about this role that your Aunt Muriel played in your life, and we're talking about unsung heroes and, everybody's story that we're sharing. What I find is there's all these other people who've been a part of their life that has enabled them to be who they are to be. So I just want to acknowledge your Aunt Muriel and the role that she played in your life, Dave. And that's part of what led you to be able to do what you've done. And just I think as all of us, as we listen to your story, maybe for us all to be thinking about those Aunt Muriels that we all have had in our life. And if they're still alive, call them up, send them a note, give them thanks.
Oh,
and if not, just say a prayer of thanks for them. So cool. Yeah. Huge influence, obviously, in your life, Dave. Yeah.
And I had a chance this winter, actually, while I was in Africa, her eldest daughter was on hard times.
Okay.
And I gave them my place to seek safe shelter.
Nice. Wow. Bit of full circle happening. Yeah. Cool.
So this winter. And then as I went along in high school, I was doing drugs. I was drinking. I was doing, because the harbor, you did everything, right? Our entertainment was to go sit at the church steps, the old abandoned church steps that were right across from the hotel where they played music. And it was the only place and it was in the harbor area, right? Yeah. So I was a bit of a rebel, went into high school. I met some really key friends in grade 9. And, but I still was just doing average. And then there was 4 of us, and one teacher in grade 11, another unsung hero, said to me, he said, David, come to visit me after class, after school ends, and he said to me, his name was Mr. Larson. And he said, you're much more capable than what you're showing. I want to work with you and help you. So he was person as a teacher who came and took me.
Really, really invested in you.
Really invested in me.
Yeah.
And through him, I got my confidence. And with my grandfather, who became my de facto father for me, who stood by me through everything and cheered me on and everything, through him, I did really well. I started to do really well academically.
Wow.
And started to believe that there was a different future for me possible.
Wow. Which is amazing, right? Because up to this point in your life, you haven't really seen much of a future for yourself, it sounds like.
No. I thought it'd be maybe a drunk, a druggie, or a thief or something else like that.
Oh,
and then my very best friend, his dad was the very first paramedic for the North and Northern Ontario. And his name was Randall Kane. And I used to go out tripping with him, and we were all in the high school involved. And there was another teacher that came into our lives then, Mr. Poole, who was a physics teacher and a great outdoorsman. So we went out with that. And in my grade 12 year, I had just been with my best friend and his father raising money to buy the first Jaws of Life, running a fireman's dunk tank.
Wow.
His son and I, my best friend, were operating that. And my grandparents came out to the fair that night. They said, son, do you need a ride home? And I said, well, Mr. Kane and Randall will be bringing me home. And they said, no, he doesn't need to do that. Mr. Kane doesn't need to drive into town and bring you. I said, we'll wait here. Your grandmother and I will wait. So they brought me. And I went to work in the morning shift at my summer job that I was doing. And the first call I got in the morning was that both Randall and his father were killed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, trying to rescue somebody that wasn't really dying, but put an emergency call in. And then I was really angry with God. Really, as a kid, was like, what are you making me suffer like this for? Everything I love, everything I have is going away from me. And so I wasn't real close to God then at the beginning of that. But after I got through that period, the first period, that's when I came to Jesus. And through the church that I was with, the Fellowship Baptist Church that surrounded me and tried to help me. And when I did that, my whole life changed.
How did that change the direction, the impact, your life? Yeah.
Academics, all of a sudden, took off. Not in everything at the beginning, but by the end of my grade 12, I became the top student for the entire school. A kid from the harbor who's not supposed to amount to anything, who in grade 8, the teacher had said in the academic assessment, like, this kid's at grade 3, and in the 7th month, you can't put him in advanced. And I said, I'm going in advanced. I'll figure it out.
Wow.
Right. And so I won all the awards for grade 12, got involved in student politics, and was the treasurer of the school. And then in grade 13, I won all the academic achievement awards as well. The top student became the valedictorian.
Incredible.
So God gave me a platform, gave me the confidence, gave me the tools, and I was able to go and learn engineering. McMaster University.
Yeah.
First one.
Wow.
Ever. And my mom didn't have any money to pay. So I had to earn scholarships. God made the way for me to do that. So, like, that's where it all started. And I went into the defense industry when I first graduated from McMaster. And I did a combined engineering and management degree. And I didn't pay much attention to the management side.
Okay.
I was all about math. Yeah. Mr. Larson had instilled in me this incredible desire for math. Math was the language of God to me because it's everywhere. It's magical. Sure. It's everywhere, right? And so with that, I went in the defense industry and I started doing work down in the United States, and I didn't like what I was enabling. So I was enabling the U.S. to have a capability for unmanned warfare, and I didn't realize it until some events happened. And I said, no, I'm not doing this. So I entered the computer technology industry.
Wow.
And that just
took off.
I started all down at the bottom again, and it took off. So I learned to succeed. I learned to understand needs. Ended up being to travel.
Yeah.
I got introduced to Apple at the time. I knew all the founders of all these companies. So Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, I got to meet them along the journey long before they were famous. John Warnock, Chuck Guskey, the guys that invented printing, on a digital printer. Adobe, they're the founders of Adobe.
Wow.
Yeah. And Paul Brainerd founded PageMaker, which is still now Adobe. So all these guys, the guys that created the software for freehand, everybody God introduced me to along my journey, but I thought it was me. But in my life now, I realize, no, I thought I was in control, but I know God was always in control. And I was going along a journey that I thought was my own making, but wasn't. Yeah. So I had a dream when I was that little boy, because of the brokenness, that one day God, and I had a prayer that I would always pray, God, please one day give me a chance to have a son. And he never answered my prayer. And here I am. I'm in my 20s. Every girl that I met, nothing worked out. So I'm a single guy in the tech industry. I'm super successful. I got no time for anything else. Yet as my career took off and our families grew, like my immediate family grew, there was more brokenness. And that brokenness made its way to me. So I helped to raise my godsons, whose father had decided not to be much engaged in their life. And then one of them, Jonathan, moved right into my home at 11 years old and just didn't go back home until he didn't go out on his own until he was 25.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So got to raise him and go through all the trials and tribulations of raising a kid through that puberty period and all of that stuff. But through that period, it introduced me to Boys to Men. that
Okay.
charity I
And
talked
and
to you
that's
about.
that's the organization that got you to Africa, where
Yes,
this all ended up
yeah,
happening here.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
that led me to Africa to do a project as an engineer and businessman to go and assess the situation for these 1,200 orphans that came as an inquiry after being responsible for the Facebook,
Yeah.
right, as the board at Boys to Men had put it. And so we had worked with at-risk youth too. So
Yeah.
everything there was at-risk youth, male youth.
Yeah. Really amazing where all these pieces of your life led to this incredible experience
Yeah,
of having these 7 boys from Uganda become part of your family.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had no
Yeah.
idea that they're
Yeah.
all connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And like I was telling you, when I came back from the one trip in 2007, we
Yeah.
started OMACAN
Yeah.
in 2013 to build a school
Mhm.
and to work with at-risk youth there from
Yeah.
the Niendo slum, and to help them transform their life through faith education and
Yeah.
technology. And I was just the guy to go set it up, raise the
Mhm.
funds, all of that's all I was supposed to do, and then I'd be off and I'd be done. And these other missionaries would take over, but I'm the one that's been back there. And in
Wow.
2017, instead of staying in a hotel for 2 weeks, the same cost, I could rent a house and furnish it, have staff for a year. So I decided to do that and then give 4 boys from the streets who had been successes and could potentially one day
Mm.
come to Canada,
Mhm. Mhm.
move in and learn English because none of them could speak English. 3 words: cell phone.
Incredible.
They could all say the word thank you. That
Okay.
was almost
That
the
was
first
it.
word they all learned was thank you.
Wow.
Cell phone. And
But I'm just trying to imagine, Dave, what it was like for these 4 boys, and it would grow to 7 over time, but
yeah,
these initial 4 boys to come and live with you, and like just the development of those relationships. What was that like? Because
uh,
I just can't imagine that. Like
yeah,
scary. That's hard work.
yeah.
That's like, yeah. What was that like?
Well, for me, it was. I was totally oblivious to what was going on. I was there as a teacher,
Okay.
and I was going to socialize them and teach them
Ah.
English, and they teach them
Okay.
proper manners so that when they came to the
Yeah.
West to visit, that they
Okay.
would know how to behave
Kinda like a
properly.
job. You had a job to do.
Yeah, I had a job to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, little did I know.
Wow.
No, I was being worked on,
And
right?
then
But the kids knew.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the kids. Those four boys. I didn't choose them. God chose them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They came to. I had nothing to do with
Yeah.
the selection.
Yeah. When along the way, do you remember any moments along the way where it sounds like maybe your heart got more engaged as far as just
Oh,
recognizing there's something called love here? There's a relationship that's being built in addition to the practicalities of teaching English, teaching how to behave and grow and whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
for 3 months. I went from December, January, and February. December 2017, I went back after launching the school in June of 2017. They moved into the house, and they just they were calling me uncle all the time.
Okay.
And then you give boys structure, and you give them an opportunity, you give them a safe place and a garden of love to grow up.
Mm.
And they had food, they had nourishment, they had all.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started calling me daddy. And
Mm.
I was like, no, 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 no,
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. That's
I'm just going
not.
to teach English.
Yeah, exactly. Not the job description.
Yeah.
And it was actually that Christmas Christmas 2017 that the boys, one at a time, I'd really like if you could be my forever dad.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Because
Mm.
2 of them were aging out, and I said, I will be your forever dad.
Wow.
It was like, I had no idea that God had just granted my wish.
Yeah.
Like, I've only figured that out.
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking back to your original prayer as a
Yeah.
very young person, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess it makes sense out of the context out of which you were living a broken home and desiring something that you probably saw in other people's homes and some of your friends. So as you look back and think back, like, yeah, what's your feelings now of how that prayer has been fulfilled and then some.
Yeah. Well, just yesterday I was listening to a podcast, and the pastor was talking about the story of Zacharias.
Mm. Mm.
And I was like, and he said, if this message is for someone, I don't know who it is, but someone out there listening, someone in the church will hear this message.
Mm.
And he said, Zacharias prayed for 70 years to have a child.
Wow. Yep.
And his wife was barren. Elizabeth
Mm-hmm.
was barren. He was a priest,
Mm-hmm.
and he served incense, and
Mm-hmm.
he was called in, and an angel met him, Angel Gabriel, and said, you will have a son. You will name him John.
Mm-hmm.
And Zacharias was, what? No, my wife is barren. I'm 90
Mhm.
years old.
Yeah.
That's not possible, right? It's like, no, how is this? And he said, I am the angel of the Lord, and I've been sent to give you word.
Mm.
And because you did not believe God, you will be
Mm. Mm-hmm.
not able to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Pastor said, prayers that you've long forgotten or you don't remember, God has never forgot.
Mm. Mm.
And that just hit me. That's exactly it. It's exactly God heard me all that time. God was leading me along a path, but I'm too stubborn, too control freak, too okay, I'm going to get this. I'll teach them English. I'll get them ready and all that, to just totally mess the threads.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Eh? I mean, wow. That's probably, all we
The
can do
50
is say,
years,
wow.
I was 56 when these boys came in.
Yeah. Incredible.
And I'm like, I can't be how can I be your dad? I'm too old.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You're our dad. And I was like, God, I can remember that Christmas. I was on my knees. And I said, God, I said, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
Right. And I just had a peace about me, but I was really uncertain.
Mm.
And I said, I asked for one. You gave me 4. Right. And I said, okay, that's enough. Right. And then as God does, I believe God has a sense of humor sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
And by February, I had a 5th, Wongi Daniel, and he came because there had been events at the school that led him to be forced back out onto the street, and he wasn't going to be accepted into the shelter. And the kids called me and begged me to allow him in. And in Uganda, you can't have, the law is you can't have anybody that's not a blood relative under the age of 18 under your roof, like staying overnight, right? Without permission from the courts or from the probation service, right?
Yeah.
And we had just got the permission for those four boys, but not for any additional. And I just had a relationship set. And I was back in Canada, and didn't matter. And he came. And even when I said no, he still came anyways, because the boys made him come, and he became my 5th son.
Wow.
And then one of the sponsors of a boy in the school, the boy wanted to go into welding, and he had left the school, and the sponsor, he reached out to me and wanted to really go into welding. And I reached out to the sponsor, do you want to be able to help this boy with us? And he said, yes. I said, but you got to get him off the street again. And I said, okay, well, he can come in. So I brought him in. He became the 6th.
Incredible.
And I'm like, God, come on. I said, this is like, I'm 56.
Yeah.
Right? Now just turning 57. And then he wasn't done. There was another boy, Henry, Naguyo Henry, who was just an infectious character. Like he's so charming, so like he's mischievous, so full of love and everything else. And he had been turned back to the streets. But when I went to visit, I kept going by the slum to the main area, and I'd ask the other street kids, well, where's Henry? Is Henry okay? And they said, oh, yeah, Uncle Leah's, do you want to see him? And they would go into the slum, and they would run around and find him while I was sitting at the main stage area of the slum. And he'd come and I rolled down the window and I said, "How are you, Henry?" He goes, "Oh, Uncle, I'm fine. But I'm hungry."
Mm.
I said, "Okay, here's some shillings to get a chapati." And he said, "Oh, thank you."
Mm.
And that just kept going. And then I just saw that he was getting deteriorating. His
Mm.
spirit, he was losing his spirit. So I went back to his original sponsors and I said, the Simard family out of Quebec. And I said, "Are you willing?" I said, "Because I can't handle the financial of this. The
Mm.
charity's not big enough yet to find. Can you still support
Mhm.
this boy and we'll bring him in?" And they said, "Yes,
Mm.
absolutely." So I drove back there and I found him, got him to the car, rolled down my window. I said, "Son, are you ready to change your life?
Mm.
Are you willing to do whatever?" And he said, "Yeah." This boy was living under a chapati stand in
Wow.
the middle of the slum with the malaria infested
Ugh.
creek running
Yeah.
through it, sleeping there as a place to sleep uh, because the vendor said he could look after his equipment through the night so nobody would steal it. And I said, "Go get your stuff." He went to get his stuff and he came with a little black propylene bag with
Mm.
all his worldly
That's it.
possessions. He
Wow.
didn't ask me what I was doing with him. He just
Wow.
got in the car and I said, "You got everything?" He goes, "Yep." And then he pulled out this pair of shoes out of the bag. He says, "Uncle, you see these?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You gave me these last Christmas for Christmas." I said,
Mm.
"Yeah." And he said, "Do you remember what you told me?" And I said, "No." He said, "You told me if I kept good care of those shoes, that when you next saw me, that you would get me a new pair." I
Hmm.
took good care of them, Uncle.
Oh, wow.
So he held them up, and it was just like, we got him back to Omacan House. Get in there, clean. He was just filthy. He was
Mm.
in terrible shape. And I didn't think I was getting another one, but he
Mm.
became another son.
Wow. Wow.
And I can't tell you how blessed my life has been
Mm.
with them. I've been through the highs and the
Yeah.
lows.
Yeah, and just as you share the story, Dave, there's clearly a sense of God's working in your life and a deep faithfulness that you have. How has that been part of this journey for you? That your walk with God, God's presence and power working in and through you. How has that been instrumental or part of all of this that's happened here
Yeah.
and continues to be? Yeah,
Yeah. So, completely honest with you and transparent with you, when I first went over, it was like I'm going with these missionary people,
yeah,
right? These people of God, right? I'm just going over with them. Mom, you're okay with that? Mom was attending the United Church in Parry Sound.
okay,
She was very faithful and everything else, and everybody else was, but I was like disappointed
okay,
in faith,
hmm,
right? It
hmm,
hadn't, like I didn't connect anything,
sure,
right?
yeah,
And it hadn't, I was giving up that I would have dreams that, for the family. And my
hmm,
mom used to always buy, "When are you bringing me a grandchild?" I said, "Mom, I can't
mm.
want it more than you do."
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but through this journey, um, you know, every single day I've
Mm,
become closer to God.
mm,
I can't do anything without him.
mhm,
I, he takes a mess
mm,
and makes a miracle.
mhm.
And he's done that in my life over and over again on
Yeah,
this 10-year journey. Every time we're just running out of money, which is often,
yeah.
something happens. We find land after 3 years for our family land that we wanted to do after 3 years, and just after 3 years, and I can't afford the land. And we've been looking, and every land piece that we had was surrounded by enemy.
Wow.
We finally find it, and it's inaccessible. The morning after we find it, I'm in Uganda. This is December last. I get a call. "Dave, I need to tell you something." I said, "What?" They said, "Well, I have some news for you." I said, "Oh, do I ever have news for you? Because you know how I've been looking for land and everything? We finally found it." And I'm telling the story. I said, "But it's just it's out of reach. It's God's brought it to
Mm,
me when it's not available.
mm,
Like I can't do it right now. I got to figure out how to financially do that." She said to me on the phone, "Wow. You know what I'm calling you for?" I said, "No." She said, "Somebody who just died left you in their will." And it said, "To the guy who has spent his life
Mm.
helping others, I want to help him."
Mm. Mm.
It was just enough money
Mm.
to buy the land.
Wow.
You tell me that's not God.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow.
So that was in
Yeah.
December.
Hmm.
That was in December.
Hmm.
So we went out and we bought the land.
Yeah.
So we have the land for the family there. Now we need to do the rest of the land for the rest of it. So
Really?
now it started as temporary, as God has
Okay.
made permanent.
Oh wow.
And
is that where is that? Where's the land?
in Masaka,
Okay.
Uganda.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
In Masaka, Uganda, and it overlooks this beautiful part. It's in a village that's right across from a religious community.
Mm.
So we're surrounded in that land by faith.
Cool.
Everywhere else, when I said it's surrounded by the enemy, in
Yeah.
Uganda, it's witch doctors.
Mm.
There's witch doctors all around and altars and stuff that they do. It's just terrible. But every beautiful piece of land we saw, and that was, I think now it's God's way of saying that wasn't where you're supposed to be.
Mm.
Even though our hearts were there, we wanted to be there, but no, that's
Mm.
not where you're supposed to be.
Incredible.
And I have story after story.
I can tell.
I
Yeah.
can tell
Oh,
you.
man.
And
Wow.
but
Wow.
these boys, like I said to you just yesterday, the thing with my oldest son,
Mm.
Apple on my iPhone pops up the memory, and I would love. I'll show it to you after, but I'd love to show you the photo. And it's my first full day with this boy, this street boy called Kabunga Ronald, and he became identifiable. I met him in June of 2017 on the trip that I took another boy from Canada over there who thought his life was so tough here in Montreal.
Mm.
I said, you come with me. I'll pay for you to come with me. You'll see children that worship the life that you have that you think is so terrible.
Mm.
Right? So he had been an at-risk youth and
Sure.
was struggling to find his way, and he came over and helped me.
Eye-opening. Yeah.
Yeah. But this boy happened to be at the street kids hostel on the ground playing hooky from work. And his distinguishing mark was that he had a red and white hat on. And I'm Mr. Canada. I look for even Omacan House is red and white over there. So the Ugandans all go by, they see red and white. So I didn't even realize that at the time, but he stood out to me, and I said to the leader of the thing, I said, is he doing anything? Because he can come to the school and help us out with work. And that boy later on would become my eldest son.
Mm.
And the day, just yesterday, I discovered when I went back because of the Apple memory that came, the day that I met him for the first time was Father's Day.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Father's Day 2017.
Hey, that's incredible. Dave, I just want to say, thank you. And I feel like maybe praying right now would be the best way to end here. Just to give thanks for, thanks to God, absolutely, because God has led you. But we participate, in what God is, and we partner with God.
Absolutely.
And just really hear loud and clear. And I hope everyone else hears this too. I'm sure people have. Something happens when we have the courage by the power of the Holy Spirit to say yes. And sometimes we don't know where it's going to go. Like there's so many moments along your life here, and they're still happening, right?
Oh,
I can tell, like there's a freedom that I feel from you that really is, my life is in God's hands, and I'm going to just say yes as I'm led to, and trust and live into that, and provision will come, and everything will fall into place, even though it may not be easy. It can still be challenging, but just anyway. So I'm taking a long route of saying thank you to you for your faithfulness, for saying yes, and for being part of God's miraculous activity. I love your line that God takes a mess and can turn it into a miracle. So let's take that into prayer and give thanks for you and for this and for the future. Oh God, thank you. We thank you for your incredible work in Dave's life. And it started from the day he was born, and it was a very difficult upbringing. But you work through that. You can, as Dave names so well, you can take the chaos and messiness of our life, and you can do miraculous things. And we've seen that here. In fact, it's still happening. So give Dave and his team, the Omacan organization, give them all everything they need: courage, resourcing, resiliency, creativity, and just pray that you would continue to work through them to be a blessing. And we thank you for this new, beautiful family that you have blessed Dave with, for these 7 young men, that you would continue to grow and be at the center of their life, and that they would have an incredible future. We don't know where this will all lead, but we know it's going to be a beautiful thing, going to continue to be a beautiful thing. And so we thank you and just entrust it all to you. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Dave, thanks again.
Thank you
so much for being a part of the Good News podcast today.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, me too.
The last thing I'll say is that, my prayer when I got back in March from Uganda was to God to help me get the message out about Omacan.
Right on.
Because doing all the other stuff, and then all of a sudden, your invitation came through a series of coincident events that were awesome. meant to be.
And thanks to Roberta Canning, as I named earlier, thanks for that. That's incredible. And God works through all of us. And,
He sure does.
So friends, please check out omacan.com. Offer whatever prayer and support you are led to and can. And thanks again, Dave, so much for being a part of the Good News podcast today, friends. Thanks to you for always being open to seeing God at work and being a part of the Good News podcast family. God bless you and be with you. Hope to see you again real soon. Man, I got a sense that Dave could have gone on with so many more stories. Like, there is just an endless amount of incredible stories, incredible work of God in his life. He's just so aware of that. It was really exciting, energizing to be with him. The faithfulness from this quiet but courageous man. Just so blessed to be with him. I hope you feel the same. I love the line that he used. I mentioned that at the end, that God can take our messiness and turn it into miracles. And it's so true, isn't it? You see people overcoming addiction. You see people like say Dave, where there was just a very, very rough upbringing, and God has worked in his life to bring him to where he is today, where he is a professional, where he's a leader, where he is making a difference, where he is doing incredible things to bless others, and where that little prayer from a long time ago to be able to have a family has been answered and then some. So may God take whatever messiness you're experiencing in your life and work that over time into some kind of miracle. That's my prayer and hope for you. Don't want to miss the piece that Dave has played a part in this. God works through us and in us, and Dave's ability to say yes, that's really been a part of his whole journey that's led to this. So that's cool. So that's also my prayer for you, friends, for me, for us, that we would be enabled to say yes and trust that will lead to something perhaps even greater than what that yes is. That's the way life works. That's the way God works. And we're so blessed to share it together. So glad that you could be a part of the Good News podcast family. Thanks for listening in today, for watching, and may God bless you. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Good News with Jamie Holtum. If you subscribe, that would be a great way to make sure you know every time a new episode is released. We generally release every Sunday, so you can always look on a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday and so on, but love to have you listening regularly, enjoying being inspired and experiencing the good news of God through this incredible platform and ministry. God bless you. Thanks again so much, friends.